ask what you can do for your country.
That line is, you know, it's probably the signature line of his presidency. And it's one of those things.
And his daughter forgot it, what it was.
His daughter forgot it. Well, it's a little bit of pressure here.
Do you ever recall sitting down and watching home films and video of your father?
Sure. I always thought the press conferences were great.
Big business is using the stock market slump as a means of forcing you to come to terms with business. Their attitude is, now we have you where they want you. Have you seen any reflection of this attitude?
I can't believe I'm where big business wants me.
There was a sense of kind of fun and enjoyment, and interspersed with moments of great seriousness and eloquence.
Mr. President, it's been a long time since we've had a definitive report on your health from the best possible source. How is your aching back?
Well, it depends on the weather, political and otherwise.
Your father had such incredible eloquence and grace and wit. Did you or John inherit any of that?
We're very grateful.
Mr. President, the practice of managed news is attributed to your administration.
Perhaps you tell us what it is that you object to in our treatment of the news.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I don't believe in managed news at all. I thought we ought to get everything we want.
Well, I think you should too, Miss Gray. I'm for that.
Is there any sense here that because he was so comfortable with television, that he in a way set us on this course where image is really at least as important, if not more important, than substance in politicians?
Certainly. I mean, to do this very interview, talk to people and, you know, it's how you look and is your tie straight and this and that. And I'm not sure I want to lay that at the feet of politicians. I think there's a certain...
You'd rather lay that at my feet.
I'd rather lay it on your feet.
If their father mastered the media spotlight, their mother was equally adept at keeping her children out of its glare. It may well have preserved their childhood. It certainly taught them a lesson.
How have you managed to keep your life as private as you have?
Well, I haven't talked to people like you very much.
Caroline even managed to keep the press at arm's length for her wedding 6 years ago. John wasn't nearly as successful on his first day of work as an assistant district attorney in New York.
Certainly some of the scrutiny I could do without. When I failed a bar exam, that was you know, the New York Post had the headline, "The Hunk Flunk," so some of that I could actually do without.
Of course, public curiosity with the private life of the Kennedys is an old American pastime. But the rules of the game have changed. Rumors of JFK romances were the talk of the town in Washington. They just weren't talked about in the press.
You've heard the stories about your father. Had that been dealt with by the press, do you think that it would have tarnished the image that we had of him?
I think the real question is whether or not, given the tenor of the times, my father would have gone into politics at this point.
That's a remarkable observation, that your dad might not have gone into politics if the scrutiny was as great as it is today.
As for John, when he stepped to the podium at the Democratic National Convention in 1988, the cheers seemed to belong to the past and the future.
Thank you.
Have you ever had any desire to follow your father's footsteps?
Jay, you know, no one's ever asked me that question before. Well, listen, I certainly, you know, my father was in politics, my uncles were in politics, my cousins are in politics. We grew up amidst political life.
Now, there's an answer coming here somewhere.
Yeah, there's an answer.
Okay.
But well, the answer is a big, I don't know yet. And when I do, you'll probably find out.
I'll be the first to know. You ever feel any burden, John, from the legacy?
Well, it's not really a burden. It's not something that I wake up to while I'm shaving and think, alas, the burden. But it is, and in most instances, it's really a very positive thing. People come up to you all the time and say, you know, I got into politics because your father brought me in there, or, you know, your Uncle Bobby meant an enormous amount to me, I mean, especially being in from New York. And that's a great, very warming legacy to be a part of, and I'm grateful for it.
Still, the weight of history is not easily forgotten, especially when the past keeps intruding on the present.
I actually wasn't intending to ask this, but did you see JFK, the movie?
No.
Any desire to see it?
No, I mean, let's not forget the subject matter. It's not really entertainment for me.
Curiosity? One of the things that you said about your dad, that's the greatest thing about him, was that he had a great curiosity. Aren't you curious?
But that's Hollywood.
Do you believe the Warren Commission's single assassin theory?
It's not something, frankly, I mean, I know this is hard to believe, but it's not a subject which I've spent a great deal of time analyzing. I understand that that was obviously a very historically significant event. He was a president. And there are people who, historians, filmmakers, et cetera, who are going to make money and time studying that. Whatever they decide or whatever they find is not going to change the one fundamental fact in my life, which is that it won't bring him back. I know what's important. I know what is the essential part of my relationship with him. I know how I feel about preserving his legacy and the things that continue to inspire people about politics, about him, and so that's what I choose to focus on.
Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans.
Is that torch still lit, do you think?
Well, I think it's up to all of us to make sure that it is.
Disciplined by a
Sure. That was an interview Jay Shadler did from Primetime Live with John F. Kennedy Jr. several years ago. Just to recap, a wide-ranging search is underway this morning. The Air Force, the Coast Guard, the FAA, actually the Air National Guard, the Coast Guard, and the FAA are all involved in searching for John F. Kennedy Jr.'s single-engine airplane, which took off last night shortly after 8:30 from the Essex County Airport in New Jersey, sometimes called the Caldwell Airport. He was heading for Martha's Vineyard, where John F. Kennedy Jr. goes to often with his wife to vacation at his late mother's house. They were scheduled to fly today to Hyannisport for the wedding of Rory Kennedy, who is John F. Kennedy Jr.'s cousin. That wedding, we are told, has been called off. 275 guests, many of them Kennedy family members, had assembled in Hyannisport for that wedding, are now anxiously awaiting word, hopefully good word, on where John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife Carolyn Bessette Jr. are. Again, that plane was scheduled to land in Martha's Vineyard late last night, has not landed. We are told that apparently authorities are investigating whether any flight plans were filed for this flight. They are apparently not required for flights of this nature. It could have been done voluntarily, but as of this point, we have not been able to locate any flight plans. Authorities are also looking into radio traffic, which might provide some clue as to whether or not the plane encountered any kind of trouble. We are told by the Coast Guard that conditions were pretty good last night for flying. Visibility was 4 to 5 miles. It was hazy, but in John F. Kennedy Jr.